Hi everyone. So I'm going to share a part of an interview that I did with Tim Goldish where I talk about racism and intersectionality, my thoughts on it. And I know that when people see this, people who have been victims of racism might feel hurt, might feel like I am an Uncle Tom or something like that. So I want to say that I am sympathetic towards people who are victims of racism. I have been a victim of racism, I believe, in my life at certain points. I do believe racism is real and I'm not an Uncle Tom or whatever. And if you feel that way throughout this video, please look at it until the end because I'm first sharing this clip from the interview and then I go on to explain the other side of it or why racism is real and so on. So,
I think the idea that different groups face different problems and some are privileged in some groups have more privilege and some groups have more disadvantage. I think this is true in general, right? This just the idea, just saying different groups have different issues, they share issues, and some of those issues would come up as privileges, some of those as disadvantages, or however, right? I get that. That is, if that is intersectionality, good. But the problem with that is that you cannot identify all of the groups that make up a person's personality. So if we are to take any given person and say they are existing in these intersections, okay, they will look at you and say you're a white male. They will look at me and say I'm a black female. If both of us are heterosexual, they'll say both are heterosexual. Okay, but what about all the other intersections, like how you were brought up, whether or not your mother is a narcissist, whether or not your father was abusive, whether or not you grew up in an alcoholic house, whether or not you were interfered with sexually, whether or not you... The point is that all of the intersections that make up a person, these are also groups, right? And
yes,
these
right.
groups are groups that you can't see. But what intersectionality encourages you to do is to focus on a few groups that you can easily see, like gender, like race. I don't know if you could easily see sexuality, but whatever, right? So like being a bit different in terms of sexuality. So we're focusing on these groups that you can see, and we're not focusing on the other groups which also exist, have equal amount of impact on you as a person, give you privilege or disadvantage. I mean, somebody who grows up in an abusive home is obviously at a disadvantage when compared to somebody who didn't grow up in an abusive home. Somebody who grew up in a certain level of
physical handicaps, mental handicaps, too,
exactly,
lots of things,
right? A certain level of poverty, this, all these different things. We can't see most of them. So you're not able to see what my disadvantages or what my privileges are. You just can't see. But intersectionality somehow encourages feminists, at least, to look at people and say, well, I can see your disadvantage. And there's something really wrong with that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
There's something really wrong with privileging the group settings that you can see and ignoring the others. The thing is that I don't mind the concept of intersectionality, but you cannot use it to judge people. This is where it just goes like wrong, 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 wrong. So if you want to talk about intersectionality in terms of like different groups face different problems, some groups have it easier in society, some groups have it harder in society, you can talk about that. You can talk about issues that affect people as groups. Alcoholics face this issue, autism people face this issue, people who grew up with drugs in the home face
all kinds of things, right? But this also demonstrates how far we've come from the path that Martin Luther King suggested, where he was famous for saying, I don't judge one by the color of their skin, I judge them by the quality of their character, right? And look how far we've come from that.
Right. I mean, well, obviously there's that too, in that they try to flip racism around, and then they create this whole white guilt and thing. This is all nonsense as well, because the people who are alive today have nothing to do with that. And, I was thinking about it. I have so many thoughts on this. I'm from the Caribbean, right? We had slavery. I have a cousin who did she was doing a thesis. She lives in America, but she was doing a thesis on like some stuff to do with slavery, right? So she's not stuff to do with slavery. Sorry, she studied some sort of science and genetics and stuff like this. But anyway, she came back home to take like samples and stuff, and she took many of our samples and different people and so on. Looking at the population, black Americans and Caribbean people and their genetics and stuff like that. And the results of that, this was done a long time ago, when I was really young. It's really a long time ago. But the point is, she took our genetics to see like what are we mixed with. And of course, in America, most black Americans are mixed, and in the Caribbean as well, even though we appear black and we are black, you know. Genetically, we are mixed. So genetically, I have European blood in me. I can't say from where, but you know, it exists, right?
Sure.
So the thing is, right? So the point, what I wanted to say is that I was thinking about it because sometimes you see things that many people, black Americans or just black people in general, post. And things like that, and they're complaining about, if you complain about like slavery and stuff and complain about like slave masters or whatever. The point is, the person who you would be most angry with is you. If I want to be angry with a slave master, the slave master's genetics are in me. That's where the slave master is. You understand?
Yeah,
like the people who oppressed my black ancestors, their genetics are inside of me. So I would have to be angry with me, because on average, actually, black Caribbean people, something like 20 to 25% mixed with European. It is so much, because obviously at that in history, somehow they did sleep with the slaves.
Oh, sure.
And what happened was that they came up with the one rule and things like that to make
one drop of black blood.
Exactly. So this kept the enslaved people enslaved, in the sense that the slave masters didn't have to take care of the children who they birthed. But the point is, they still slept with them, and so their genetics show up today in us, in black Americans, in black Caribbeans. So if you're going to be angry at the sect of people who enslaved black people, you need to be angry at yourself. The rest
well, that's right, because I have no idea, right? But maybe you're 10% Irish for all, you know, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You might want to embrace your Irish
roots.
I mean, why not if it's 10% of it?
I didn't do a genetic.
I'm kind of joking,
but
not
my
really,
sister did a genetic test, and she got something.
You want to embrace all parts of yourself.
Right. Well, I mean, she got something. My sister did a genetic test. I think she got something like 7% something French or whatever, and some percentage of Native American or something. But the point is, right, just, I mean, a lot of the people who are today alive, who are white Americans, I think, I may be wrong, but I'm just saying, a lot of white Americans and white people in general, also in the Caribbean, these are newcomers. Their ancestors were in Europe when we were, you understand? They came after. And so you're trying to make a set of people feel guilty who didn't have anything to do with actually what happened. But, okay, then they would say it's not really about slavery, it's about what happened after slavery. And then after slavery, we also had, we had segregation and stuff like this. So they will then, it can also be, but the point is, right, the people alive today have nothing to do with what happened. So I don't see how, it's a long story. I was thinking about that as well, about many things. But I was also thinking about the first time I heard about slavery. So I had a teacher, my history teacher. She's very, she was really intense. And I remember when I was quite young, the first time I heard about slavery, when I heard about it in school and thing, I came home crying and crying. I was really crying and I was so upset. And I asked my mother, I said, Mommy, how could these people have done this? Because my teacher was really intense. She made the stuff we were taught in slavery. I can't even think about this stuff. It's nightmares, right? So so I was like, every time I went to history, it got to a point where every time I went to history class, I would be in tears after I come home. I would just be like crying, like I just can't, And actually, my mother had.
Did they teach you the real thing? Did they teach you the full level of the brutality?
I don't know. Like I always say, after as an adult, I think what was taught is very biased in that they taught it to you in order to make you angry. So again, like feminism, how they sort of pull things out of history to make women seem oppressed while forgetting the rest of it. So history for us, I mean, we're in the Caribbean, we can teach whatever we want. We are a majority black population. So, but the point is the way in which they taught it is biased, for sure. And they taught you the things that would make you the most angry. You know, so they definitely what is some bias and stuff like that. But okay, that's how it is, right? The thing is, though, I remember crying to my mother, you know, why would these people have done this? How did they do this? And I remember saying to her, like, I understand if they caught people in Africa and brought them like to the Caribbean and then they were slaves and then those people died off or whatever. And that's fine. They were caught in Africa and they became slaves. But why did they make the children slaves as well? You know, like I couldn't understand that because in my head, even as like a really young person, it was like, okay, you could do something to somebody, whatever, you know, all is fair in love and war. But to children, to the children of those people, why would you involve? And it's the same concept. Like, okay, you can be mad at history, but why are you mad at the people who are here today? Who didn't do anything? They're innocent. They didn't do anything. They didn't do, you know, like, even if you're mad at the history aspect of it or the people in the past, don't be mad at the people today. There are also other aspects of that. Oh God, I could go on and on. But the other aspect of that is that we in the West are so arrogant. I'm sorry. But I really feel like people who are angry about racism and slavery and things like that are so arrogant in this sense because we live in the West in a social system where globally people around the world are producing goods that we consume. The fashion industry, the computers, everything. You know, children in parts of Africa having to go into mine certain products in order to get you a phone. However, right? However it was. The point is, we live in a system very similar to what happened in the past. It's just not on a local level, but it's on a global level. And I don't see, sorry to say this, and I know I'll get real hate, but I don't see Black Americans standing up for the children who are mining in Africa. I don't see Black Americans who complain about slavery standing up for people in the fashion industry and the work that they're doing. And this is the same system.
Yeah. My understanding is that over a 10-year period, 59,000 Chinese men lost their lives in coal mining accidents alone.
Exactly. So this is the same system. This is not different. So if you're going to complain that white people in the past didn't stand up for slaves, then you're a hypocrite if you today are not standing up for people in the third world who are dying to produce products that you use every day.
That's right.
Because it is exactly the same system. There's
same
no
exploitation.
difference. It's the same exploitation. It's happening today and you are silent. And then you want to tell me that those people who you hate historically were bad? They weren't bad. They were you. They are you. They did exactly the same thing. So it's a complete mess. It's complete nonsense. The concept of hate over this, what happened historically, is wrong on many different levels. It's complicated, but it's wrong. So okay, race is a very complicated topic though. And in terms of intersectionality, I see the point of the different groups face different but beyond that, they've gone crazy. You know, and they have created a system where we are judging people based on how they look, the groups that we can identify by sight, because most of these groups, we cannot see them. We just can't.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now that is all real. But on the flip side of it, I want to talk about like how racism is also really real and it hurts people and so on and so on. And I'm bringing that up in light of like my situation and stuff. This week, these last 2 weeks, I've had an experience which is to me similar to racism or something that reminds me that racism is something that really hurts people in a unique way, right? So I live in Belgium, and in the where I live, the primary language is German, but they also speak French and Dutch and so on. It's primarily German. Second primary language would be French, right? So we chose to live here, so it's our choice. And I chose to live here knowing that I would be at a disadvantage linguistically because my mother tongue is English, and I speak German, but it's not, the level at which I speak German is not good enough to get like the type of job that I would like to get, which puts me in a very sort of crisis position in terms of looking for a job. I would like to get a job, but I would really like to get a job that allows me to speak English. And I've been looking, for a while for English speaking jobs there are, but I also sort of am somebody who has always, and I wanted to prioritize my kids. So I am not someone who has worked when my kids need me or whatever. So I kind of want a part-time job. I'm very specific, picky, and I guess privileged in that I don't need to have a job to eat or something. It's just that I want to have a job because right now my kids are all in school and I'm in a phase in life where I have enough time. And so I would like to have a job, yes. And at some point I did think, I would like to be able to do social media, do things like Women Against Feminism, focus on that. But there's also reality in that I am not someone who is very charismatic. I cannot get people to, I don't know how influencers or whatever become big. I don't know how something becomes viral. I don't know how to do all of these things. So it's probably not possible. Anyway, while looking for a job, I have been on the list of people who are looking for a job, and I do like part-time work, just look in one of the schools nearby. In the lunch break, I look after the kids and stuff. It's not real work. It's very minimal work. Anyway, within the school, a job opportunity came up for someone just to help teaching, help the English department with teaching. It's not a very big job, but the criteria for it, I happened to meet the criteria, I thought. And it said native English speaker and so on and so on. I applied for the job. I tried, I did my best in terms of applying, and I didn't get the job, and they didn't fill the position. When asked why I didn't get the job or whatever, the person who was hiring said something like, when she looks it up, the country that I come from in the Caribbean, it doesn't say that English is the mother tongue, so she doesn't think I'm a native English speaker. So I couldn't get the job because of this, right? And no one got the job. I live in a village, right? No one got the job. The job is unfilled. They will maybe get somebody or whatever. But the point is, right? It's not a very complicated job. I think it's something that I can do, and I think I meet the qualifications. But I can't get it because someone else's opinion, or the person who's hiring, their opinion is that I am not qualified. Because their opinion is that I am not an English native speaker. And there's no way for me to overcome that. Like, there's nothing that I can do to change her mind. I mean, I tried, but there's nothing that I can do at this point to change her mind, to make her believe that. And I feel like it's not exactly racism, but this is, in a sense, to me, it's very close to racism in that, if, for example, I had a passport that said United States of America or Britain or something like that, which in my family, my sisters have British passports. I mean, it's not something that is so far-fetched for me. Then I would have had access to that position. However, I don't have access to it because of something that had nothing to do, that is just like, it's so much by chance, which is, it's like race or something. It's just, there's this classification, and I don't fall within that classification. Therefore, I can't get it. And it doesn't matter whether or not I truly am qualified, whether or not I have the skills to do it, whether or not, and that, it really hurts, right? It hurts. It hurts because I'm denied an opportunity that I would really have liked. But it also hurts because it's like somebody is telling you that you are not something that you believe that you are, and that is a part of your identity. And I think, to me, this is not exactly racism, but it is something that I experienced that is hurting me right now. And so I just want to say, yeah, I understand that racism is real and that it happens in many cases and it hurts people and it has long-term effects, and that it is something that people, have to live with and have no choice but to live with. And I guess in different parts of the world, this plays out in many different ways, and every country would have their own specific visions or ways in which racism regularly occurs or whatever. And people who are on the receiving end of it really are powerless in that sense, and they don't have a choice but to live with it and to, adapt to it. And they miss out. They miss out on job opportunities. They miss out on things that could make their lives better. And so, yes, racism is real, and you do have a right to complain about it and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make that so that I don't seem completely unsympathetic to the fact that it is real. The other thing is that a lot of racism today, I know, in terms of, let's say, being a Black person, is very mental in terms of, I guess people feel, and I think what happens is that we have cultural stories which have stereotypes embedded within them, and a lot of these stereotypes are embedded, and if they are negative towards yourself, you still feel it, as in you believe negative things about yourself. And I think that is something that still happens today, and it affects people, and it's real. And I have also felt it. I mean, I have felt it in terms of, I've been, as a young person taking examinations, I've always done really well, but I mean, I would think, oh, I can't be good at this subject because Black people are stupid or something. It sounds stupid, but it's true. These sort of negative stereotypes affect you. Same with like sports or something. You would think, when I was really good at volleyball when I was younger, I would think, oh, I should be good at sport because I'm a Black person. So these sort of stereotypes, I don't know how to describe it, but it affects you mentally, and it plays a role with your confidence and how much effort you put into things and stuff. And this is a real thing that that society is working on, and hopefully will be gone in the future, but it affects people today. So yeah, just wanted to say, yes, racism is real, but all the other stuff I said before is also real. So there are two sides to the story, in my opinion. Of course, I could be wrong, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts.